Welcome to the Image Critique Show with Jeff Johnson, Rick Avalos, and a special guest. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us once again. Our fourth season, or this is our third show of the year. And we have another great selection. As you know, we've been doing some themes for our broadcast. We're just trying something out. We didn't know how it was going to work, but I will tell you that we have a ton of beautiful black and white images. The timer even went off so a few people contacted me and said, "Hey, I didn't get my image in there. Sorry, we're already deciding how we're going to handle all these in a short amount of time. So jump in. Don't wait till the last minute to submit your images because the timer will cut you off." So we've got a great selection. We got more people coming in, good followers. There's a couple new names too. That's kind of cool. So it's good to say, "Oh, hey Tamara, good. Thanks for joining us." So Rick Avalos wasn't with us last month. A lot of you know he's got a part-time job detailing cars, so he hasn't been around for a while. So Ricky, how you doing, brother? Good to see you.
Yeah, doing great, and I'm so pleased to see. Gosh, we've got looks like 22 that are joining us, and looks like there'll probably be a few more. Bunch of great images, and uh, but just want to express my appreciation and gratitude for everyone for supporting our mission, our cause here. This has been a great ride for the last 4 years, and we're looking forward to many more years and a lot of good things in the making. But uh, again, appreciate you joining us. We got a great uh, buddy of ours. We always say that, it seems, when we open these shows, but doggone it,
It's true. It's
Jeff and I
true.
have been blessed
Yeah.
to to know so many wonderful people in this industry that have helped us along, and hopefully we've had a bit of influence with others. In particular tonight, if you don't mind, Jeffy, I'll just kick off the
Oh,
introduction.
please, please say
Um,
hi. Let's say hi to Kevin real quick too. If those our
Absolutely.
new
You
our
know,
new our new partner in crime
yeah,
here.
Kevin and uh, Cliffy. Of course, I mean, Cliffy, he's the go-to guy and the get out guy. When he wants us to get the heck out of town, he lets us know. But Kevin, thank you so much for uh, coming in and being part of the gang here. Um, Dennis Hammon. I mean, anyone that hasn't heard the name or doesn't know Dennis hasn't been in photography very long. Uh, Dennis, it's so good to have you with us. You know, our theme tonight, of course, is black and white. Incidentally, we're not against some opinions. If you guys want to offer some opinions of our theme for this go around, uh, we're always willing to have some input, accept some input, uh, because the show is for you guys. But let's get back to Dennis. I mean, he's been around a long time. Uh, isn't it true, Dennis? Or the rumor is that you uh, handed a film holder and you said, uh, Mr. Mr. Adams, here's the film holder that you were asking about. And he
Actually,
said,
two of them. Two of
yeah,
them.
he said, two
Sure.
of them. And he said, just call me Ansel. And
Yeah.
yeah, so it goes back a little while. Uh, but Dennis, thank you so much for being with us. If I might, uh, when Jeffy and I first launched this project, our very first guest was, guess
Absolutely.
who? Dennis Hammond. And,
Absolutely.
we can go to Dennis, and at the drop of a hat, after making a request, he'll make it work no matter what. So, Dennis, your accolades are too many, too much to speak of now, because we want to draw on your expertise for a lot of great work that we're going to be seeing tonight. So, I give you my friends, Dennis Hammond. Thank you so much, Dennis, for being with us.
Well, thank you for inviting me. Thank you for trusting me to show up with you guys tonight. You know, after you do it the first time, I don't hear from you for a couple of years. You think, man, I'm in trouble.
I love that line. You don't talk to him for 5 minutes. He's like, "Where the hell have you been? You don't like me anymore? You don't love me anymore?"
Not feeling the love, man. Well, as long as we all been in business a long time and almost 50 years for some of us, and I'm just glad to still be invited anywhere besides our funeral, and it's a good day. Can't complain.
Good. Great to
Well,
have you
well,
with
Dennis,
us.
we've got 25 plus really outstanding black and white images tonight, and as you guys all know, I'll just hit it. We'll pull them up one at a time here. I'm going to share the screen, and usually start off with our guest, with Dennis making a comment, and then Rick and I, or both of us, will make something in, and Kevin's got his 2 cents. Of course, they'll throw in there, especially in the black and white world. So you're going to get a lot of great information. We are recording the program, so it will be up online, both on our site and on the our YouTube page for you to jump in and watch the whole thing, preferably, and or pick out your parts of it to learn about what was said about your image and so on. We also, a couple things, just a little note. We're trying to keep it so the show doesn't go too long. We're going to allow about 25-ish images for each show. So in the future, what I'm going to do, like tonight, some of you have submitted two. I'm going to show one of yours first, and if we have time, we'll pull up the other ones. If we don't get your image and it's the second one, that's why we're just trying to keep the show from going so long. And I think we might go to where just one image entry in the future, but we're still talking about that. So if an image of yours doesn't show up and we've seen one of them, that's why, because we're trying to be fair to everybody. So, and then also, I don't know, Kevin, do you want to talk real quick about your other endeavor? You want to do that at the end of the show, just to give you?
Maybe at the end of the show. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Remind us at the end. Kevin's got a new venture that he's going into. I'd love to have you all hear about it and check it
Yep.
out. So, all right. So let me go ahead and I'm going to get Photoshop rolling and get you guys looking at some pretty pictures.
Yeah, let's do
And
it.
let's see. Let's do a little share here.
This is a show of my passion here, black and white.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I think is kind of fun doing this, is that we get
Mhm.
everybody involved in what they really love. That's beyond just photography. It comes into the messages and the stories and the things that just, I think, kind of base our roots for those of us who are running the show here. So let's just start out with abstract geometry. Dennis, I'm gonna let you go ahead and jump in, and remember you've got the pen tool there in your annotate palette that gives you a chance to go ahead and color, draw, and pick a color and draw in the image when you talk about that's real helpful. People love that. So
Well, I'm not sure where the annotate palette is, but that's okay.
okay, you should, on your Zoom screen, there should be a little blue pen or pencil looking tool at the bottom
Oh,
left.
got it. Okay, I got it. Had to move my mouse. Okay, got it.
Okay.
Okay, I love it when people can find these things and see these things. That's part of black and white, is when we're able to actually visualize and see things. And we obviously this was in color, and the key to it is when we're able to see them in black and white. And Jeff, he's drawn on my screen already here.
Well, I had another screen pop up all of a sudden here, so I had to move that in my
I
view.
go,
Okay, go
man.
ahead. Sorry.
So, I think what draws us to this is the symmetry of it and all the architectural part of it and the lines and the shadows. And they've caught it at a different interesting time of day where the diagonal from the bottom left to the top right, is one tone, and the other part of the image from the top left is a different tone because of just the way the light's hitting. And so it creates this dynamics of the light ratios coming across the image. They've done an interesting presentation with to capture eyes, and a lot of times I like to have my presentations a little wider and thicker than what I'm seeing there, because it actually supports the width of some of the columns there. But I think the way they've got the line straight, they got the column straight, and they've got it to a point where they could have done different croppings. I think the cropping is right on point on this. So this is a really, really fine black and white image of this.
Kevin, go ahead, jump in, bud.
Yeah, I agree. I've been, as Dennis has been talking, I've been scouring this image, looking at if there's other crops or any other types of things that I would suggest or see. And I'll be honest, I don't see much that I would change with this. Like, just like Dennis was saying, the verticals are precisely handled. Compositionally, the whole thing is essentially the subject matter. I would say probably the lower right where those four windows kind of are is this bulk right here is kind of where my eye is drawn, I think, the most. Um, and then the other thing that I would like to point out is it appears this is either, on a shady side of a building or they've captured it during a cloudy day. And I commend them for that because this image with hard shadows, a lot of very hard shadows would be entirely too busy. So you're seeing the reflections in the window. That's just imagine that over the entire frame. It would be far too much, I think. So cloudy days are your friend many times on this type of building and this type of structure. Well done.
Hey, let me throw a question at, I'm going to throw it at Rick and Dennis because they've done the PPA judging so much. When you see an image like this come up, I know a lot of times we are looking for that center of interest. What do you do when you see an image like this? Because this doesn't have a really strong, obvious look at me point. What's your thoughts on that kind of thought in photography?
Yeah. I'll take it at this point. Um, this is what intrigues me about this image, because um, when you say or ask Jeff about a center of interest, I think a common response is the whole image is a center of interest, and that's valid in most cases. What I find intriguing about this image is the lack of symmetry. For instance, for example, I should say, a lot of times we'll see images where let's go from right to left, we would have all of these vertical.
Go ahead, Rick, continue. Oh, well, how did you rig that one, Cliff, so it would shut his mic off?
No, I, I didn't do that.
Hmm.
That was perfect timing. The clock, so guys, be prepared. The clock just shuts your mic off,
Yeah.
freezes your camera. Dennis, you want to add anything about that for my question in this piece?
Well, I
Can you
think
hear me okay?
No,
Yeah.
we lost
yeah,
you for a second.
yeah.
You're
Go ahead,
back
Rick.
now. Go ahead.
Okay. I just wanted to make the point um, that I don't know where I got cut off, but we're seeing these vertical lines from right to left, but yet on the top left quadrant, it's a different architectural. Uh, are you? Am I still with you guys?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you're
Okay.
good.
Um, but on the top left quadrant, it's a different type of architecture. That's what I find intriguing about the image. Um, Top left corner, maybe toning down the uh, that little. Um, I'm just getting my cursor. This area here, top left corner, just to tone that down a little bit. But I find it intriguing because there's not that repetition from right to left, but a difference in that top left quadrant of the architecture.
Anything else, Dennis, you want to add to that just for
Think we're good.
we are going on with an image that's called Beak Interrupted. Dennis, go ahead. He's
You
laughing.
know,
That's a good
well, the
good thing.
titles, a lot of times, when you go into scoring and judging, the titles can help make or break an image and get the judge's attention. And the beak interrupted, you got interesting base of the image coming in. It's interesting they put it on a high key with the gray mat around it, and the gray was kind of emulating probably the gray and the feathers. But as I see it now, I see the beak is in focus, but the feathers behind it and down below I feel like are challenging to me because they're not quite in focus, and yet we got feathers on the shoulder that are in focus as much. Could be that it was moving. He was, a lot of issue, but if you're trying to do a shot like this, I would think that try to keep it as sharp as possible. Those eyes are penetrating. The beak's right there. We got the dual highlights coming across on the beak, but I almost feel like the high key is too much high key for this image because it really brings out the background. It makes them stand out so much that it is overdone on the high key, I believe.
Yeah, I would have to say I agree with that too. There's just this question of the beak is sharp, the feathers on the body are sharp, but under the neck it just seems a soft area there, and you could say movement, but I think you get other areas. So, watch little things like that. Good range of black and white throughout the bird. I don't mind the white background. I think it's kind of bold that you've done that. What it does do is it also brings all those individual hairs, feathers, whatever a young bird has on the top of its head, which brings to scrutiny for a judge. Kevin, Rick, anything you want to
That's
add?
that's what I'm seeing is some of the issues with those feathers that are, there's some clipping happening there, and you're kind of losing some of those things. So some of these feathers, appear to be they're not cut out, but it's kind of the way that background has been brightened up so much and masked back in the foreground. So a couple issues there. I compositionally, I quite like it. I think it would work probably better in maybe a square, I mean, just cut this off here. I think that could a square would be a little stronger for me. Um, and I like the concept. I think it's just slightly missed. Yeah, I feel like that looks pretty good. That
Would you go
square just
even
feels.
tighter than that, like down into here?
Nah, I don't think tighter necessarily. I just feel like I just feel like the square just felt a little bit better.
And the problem with me for that crop tight, I like Kevin said, the back to the feathers, it makes it look like it's too centered and brings the beak right in the center point.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I think it's too centered, which I have no problem doing centered image, but I don't think this is the image for that.
I see that. Yep.
I kind of
Agree.
like this crop. It's bold and it works for
Yeah.
simple. Okay, the next image is called bird cage. Bird
More
cage.
birds?
Not necessarily.
Hmm.
Kevin, I'll let you jump into this one.
Yeah, this is interesting.
Yeah,
Trying to,
this looks a lot like something I'd see in Europe when over there with the elevators and things over there. And no, I understand people trying to set their presentations there, but I think sometimes the more simplicity would uh, push this a little higher, especially with that darker mat the outside, and maybe go with a attached stroke line. But I do like the light coming through the cage and feathering out onto the floorboard, and the railing is coming in, and we got it gives you a mystery of the bird cage, the elevator versus the stairs going down and the doors and back. So it leads an air of mystery of what's going on. And it'd been interesting if they could have caught somebody coming in slow motion up the stairs. It could have been real
Yeah,
interesting.
Oh,
They could have got
yes.
yes.
that would
Yeah,
have been
they
cool.
you nailed it, Denny. You nailed it with that comment, in my opinion. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, it's all good. I look at in the upper left corner of the photo itself. Do we need that little triangle of light up there? And I'm thinking, could we have cropped more judiciously, across the top down? Could we, have, crop this across a little bit more? I mean, there's a lot of things you could look at, but that's my opinion on it.
Man, I'm really intrigued by this image. I think my opinion is the crop is just, it's fine the way it is. Um, and I totally agree about the presentation. And you won't find me saying this very often at all, but it's pretty rare that an image can be presented full bleed and still carry on. And Jeffy, can you come in and just crop out the presentation and just leave the whole image, but without just full bleed? Man, there's just so I'm a sucker for TCM, um, the classic movies, and they have a
Yeah,
film noir that they call, and it's movies back from the 30s, 40s, 50s, even into the 60s. Man, and this just reminds me so much, but of that genre, and
Kind of
I
like a
couldn't.
Hitchcock, huh?
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
couldn't agree more with Denny if there was some kind of a shadow. As it is, I think it's a great image. Now, in terms of what we might think about, I see a highlight up here. what is if it's adding anything to it? Top left corner, we have these highlights along the side and along the ridge of the little roof there that can be toned down. But this is very, very intriguing to me.
You need a PI Bogart walking up the stairs with the
Yeah,
trench coat and
man.
the hat on, kind of with his head down, just
Yeah.
walking up there. That would be cool.
Forget Bogart. I want Hetty Letty in there.
Ah, ah.
Too funny. All right, let's do this. Let's go on to the next image. We have plenty more. So we have an image called Bobby Sox Trees.
Well, I
Now
can
this
tell
one
where
is,
this is at before even looking at it. It's a title.
well, go ahead, Dennis, since this is your neighborhood.
Yeah, it's my backyard. Bobby Sock Trees. Uh, I love this area. This is actually one of the most photographed areas in the park, I've
I
been
bet.
told. And no, but yet on the other hand, you can be there and people walk past and go, "What are you photographing?" The trees. What I think is interesting is the texture that's been incorporated into it with the steam, the mist, and almost looks like extra texture there. But the dynamics of the trees, and then they left that one falling tree that shows the tension in there. And they've got the snow and the tension of the tension of the snow versus the trees meeting each other. It's sad. I wish I could have seen. I'm not sure if I like the tree going out of the top. There's no presentation on to direct my eye into her, but yeah, those trees up there, they could have brought one down a little lower, however. I mean, it is what it is, it's nature. But it's just the little things that you start looking at, okay, how much further do I want to go? So could
What
we
is what
go
does
ahead?
that do? What does that do to Dennis for your viewing this image when those trees go out of the frame like
I
that?
look at it, it takes my eye out the top real fast.
Okay.
It takes my eye out. And that's
Yes.
and my I'm looking at like the could we have um could we have cropped this off this edge over here? Could we have cropped that, made it more slimline, got rid of this whole tree? But then that's kind of like the Lone Ranger out there doing his own thing. So it's going to be a lot of variables in the cropping and things. This one little area right here with the steam, the mist, and the texture uh, doesn't quite mesh with some of the other pairs and could have been maybe toned down and feathered down just a little bit. But um, yeah, they've added it's kind of a got a blue cast because I don't see the black and white in here because I'm seeing the brown in the trees and the kind of the blue cast in the mist and fog, and so it's not a total black and white, but it's really it's still a monochrome type image with just the tones in there.
Kev, anything you want to add?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was wondering too. Is this image has it been toned or is it just a monochromatic feel? It's certainly not a neutral black and white, that's for sure. And it looks like it could be, a cyanotype potentially. Like Dennis said here, that little spot there is a little bit bothersome. That could be easily cloned and worked with, I think. And to Dennis's point about those trees exiting, I agree. And you have all these trees that are pretty abruptly stopped. There's no reason that you could not just kind of cut one there and cut one here potentially.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then just clone sky in or just, spot healing and you're done. And those trees may not be that tall when you go back the next time. So don't even think twice about that kind of a thing. I'm never bothered by cleaning up nature when it's not adding to your photograph, it's subtracting from it. Feel free to do that kind of work.
Well, I think you're creating a piece of art, so I think you have that
Correct.
privilege, that license to do those little
Yep.
things that I don't think somebody's going to come along and even say, "Hey, why those trees are
They
taller
wouldn't
than
even
that?"
know.
No,
It's
exactly.
yeah,
So,
it's
but you're right. It keeps your eye on the frame. Anything
yeah.
else you want to add, Rick, to that, or should
No,
we?
well said, Eric.
Well said. Yeah.
Yeah.
This one's called Broken Window. Oh, what a story.
Oh,
Yeah,
Dang.
I agree. That's exactly there. What I was going to say is, oh, if the stories this window could tell. And this is the kind of thing that I really enjoy finding out and about. The maker has done something interesting in capturing this and centering the window. And then in addition to we're getting a peek into the back window, the back door, the doors open in the background. We're also getting reflections in those lower quadrants.
Yeah, I like that.
So we're getting a peek into the interior and the exterior of the surroundings. And the bushes and the vines at the very bottom right, are very powerful because they keep your eye within the scene as well as the vines across the top. The the caveat of the whole thing, the beautiful part about it is the fabric that's hang out the windows. It's like everything's gone, and here I am, and we're blowing dust in the wind type thing. I think the maker did a nice job. Again, a nice presentation would feel added to where we wanted to look. I kind of wish that there would have been more fabric at the bottom center so we could have seen where that tailed off because it kind of abrupts there. But no, that's not going to deter. It's a little off kilter on the top level, and maybe they did that on purpose because the left hand side and the top seems to be off centered, and that could be easily had fixed in some judicious cropping, just perspective cropping. But then that again that adds to the air of mystery is the door in the background's ajar.
That was going to be my question to you guys. What are your thoughts on the perspective?
I think it could be. I think when you get a point where you're just a little bit off square, it looks like, I hate to use the word mistake, but it looks like either make it straight or make it obviously off, a little more of a twist. And I think Dennis had a great point. Boy, if there was more under at the bottom and those draperies came down a little farther, show the bottom and show more of the wall, that would have been, I think, just a little bit more of the story, but I think this is in the brown tone kind of feel, sepia. That's awesome.
That's perfect for this image. I would almost like
Yeah,
to see a little bit more out this way too, just with the end of that
show the
window
whole
frame there.
frame. Yeah,
A little bit, yeah. And I would not want to square this image up. I would want to have it more canted, I think.
yeah,
Um,
I
yeah,
agree.
I think this is deserving of that. What's really cool to me too is how this window is warping these trees here. See that warping that's
It
happening
gives it
there?
another dimension, doesn't it? You've got
Sure
both the
does, yeah.
windows and then
It's quite
between the
cool.
curtains. Yeah, between the
There's a
curtains
lot
on
of
the
things
right.
to look at in this
Yep.
image as you look around. There's all kinds of little Easter eggs. Um, I can't really strike it for much. It's it's busy, but busy in a good way.
I mean, it even looks like there's a little bit of bird presence on that window.
Maybe.
And the caulking in the top of the window here is kind of leaving. And I mean,
I
it
mean,
just
there's a
is so
couple
many
little edge
stories,
elements maybe up here that could go.
right?
It's pretty nitpicky, I think, on some of those things, but sure. And then a presentation I think would work well here.
And I think it would be interesting to see just back off just a little bit if there's
Yeah.
all the edge of the window, a little bit more underneath the drape. Rick, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I'm sure the photographer explored this area, and I'm just guessing that there are more files. I would really be intrigued to see what's inside and beyond those windows.
Oh, no
That
kidding.
door has so much character. Man, you could do an album just in this scene alone, I would bet.
This one is called Chasing Light, Chasing the Light. All right, Chasing the Light. Sorry, Rick, in my English
Yeah.
there.
Oh.
Kevin, I'll let you start this one. Go ahead.
I mean, it doesn't suck.
Is that a compliment or is that?
Yeah, I can tell you that. Um,
They
this
should
is
add that to the
this will
13th
make
element.
Rick very happy and Dennis probably too. That the human element is what makes this image
Yes.
so powerful. The sweeping lines that are all, leading my eye to the human element, the way that his shadow is kind of branching off and long. So it's a long shadow, morning light or evening light late. Uh, it's the tonality that's behind the human form there is, I think, is nice and subtle, just enough where you have some separation around this person without it being too abrupt and too you see him right away, but then it's not so distracting that you don't want to explore the rest of the image. And that black sky is the chef's kiss on that for sure. This is stunning to me.
Dennis, what do you think?
Well, I agree with all those points, and then I got to go to one of the elements that I was a go with. That there's a lot of noise and color challenges in the sky and in the
Is
sand
there?
dunes. Yeah, I do have a calibrated monitor, a BenQ monitor. So,
Yeah, I'm not
but
seeing it.
no, I'm just saying. But in on this image, there is a lot of even when I turn my head, there's rasterization in the sky,
Mm,
and then there's rasterization in the big dune. Because what I'm seeing is I'm seeing stuff all in this dune here, it's all through here, and I'm seeing some stuff through here, and then there's a whole bunch of it right up in here. And so that's the differences when you look at different monitors, how things show up. And
mm.
because it's coming up green and kind of magenta on my monitor, as opposed, and then there's like some banding going across this way. I agree with all the points that you talked about with the dynamics of the image, the composition, the lines, the tones, the way they play, the placement of the subject in there. But then those things are all moot if you don't get the technique and the technical excellence in the image nailed down.
Okay.
Am I the only one who's seen it?
I'm
No,
not seeing it.
I see it.
Interesting. If Jeff's not seeing it, it's on his, so it could be a Zoom thing then.
Well, I'm just saying what I see on my monitor,
Yeah,
but
yeah. Well, that's
I mean,
valid.
I do see a
Absolutely.
little grain, a little bit of noise in there, but you're going to get that in shadows and something like this, delicate shadows. But I don't see any color in the black. The sky or the background is just black, and the shadow in the far right, I don't see any color tone. I don't see any gradation like you're talking about. So I think that goes to your point that it's because we're on Zoom, because we're relying on the interweb here.
give me a damn print. Let's look at them. I'm sorry. I
Oh
want to see a
Yeah,
yeah,
print.
yeah, yeah. I agree.
yeah.
I
I
think the
agree.
next month's meeting we're going to meet in person somewhere and bring your photographs.
Yeah.
Okay, sign me up.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. Otherwise, it's a wonderful story, and I like like you said, the placement of the person, and there just absolutely brings this. How many Dunes pictures have we seen over the years? And they're all very beautiful, but just adding that little tiny human element shows us size, shows us emotion.
That's what it is. The
That's
size,
yeah,
Well, it's a
Yeah.
yeah,
scale.
perspective. It's the
yeah,
perspective they are catching.
Okay,
exactly.
okay, guys. Because this is all about, the educational point perspective.
Right.
Okay, if we accept that we do have, this banding or uh, uh, breakup, whatever, what do you do about it? The next go round with this image.
Well, the next go around for me is that if I, that's the thing is that a good panel of judges, even though different people, Rick says he thought he saw it, others may not have, just accept that it may be there, that you may not see it. That's number one. As a judge and juror, they need to accept it. And as the person looking at it is maybe go back and look at their file and just double check and make sure they haven't overprocessed and push that over the edge.
Okay, that's good stuff, guys. Thank
Thanks.
you. Delicious imperfection. Dennis, what do you think?
I think the maker did a great job on this. Number one, what I'm seeing here is the rule thirds. I mean, they got the rule thirds. They got the old cabinet there. They got the uh, denim or the burlap up fabric there, and they got those pairs turned in just such a way that makes your eye lead from the left one up to the right one, and the base that leads down to the right one. And so they did a nice job. This is something I would see in a museum, and they didn't.
Right,
It crafted very exquisitely with the presentation, which I really like, and that negative space between the I'm saying the little counter shelf and the presentation, I think, is an integral part of it because it brings your eye back into the photo, and it actually is part of the framing device. Could they have brought it down a little bit more? Maybe get some of those highlights off the pears. Some of the pears have a little bit more highlights, but I think this is cropped just perfect and just tonalized. And maybe go to maybe a little more sepia for the old-fashioned look on this instead of this kind of look. Maybe go to more of a sepia. And I see Jeff's trying to change it up there a little bit. Yep.
just to give a little more guts, a little more punch to the pears. I like that the what do I do here? Look at the texture you can see in the drawer front or the front of this cabinet, just in this black, this deep. I mean, you're down there in zone one or two, and you've got texture in there. You've got textures in the highlights of the pears. So going just a little, you might, if you go darker, maybe lower the contrast just a little bit. because you've got plenty of contrast range in there. But if you go dark, you don't want to make this a big black blob. But if you, like I did, make it darker, you see how quickly this gets really black. But maybe
Yeah.
even just lower the contrast. Let me just play with that real quick here.
Well, that's one thing that caught me when I saw this image initially is the beautiful tonalities and the range that it had. And I guess it was, I know you guys are gonna laugh at me, the juxtaposition of the different you guys knew it was gonna come. Well, it is. Look at the different textures, the wood, the
You're
fabric,
right.
and the
Yeah.
fruit. And they all mesh harmoniously together to create a really nice image.
Yep. That's true. The story, the feeling, like I said, the harmony of the fruit. I mean, just the placement of the fruit and the cloth is just thrown there. It's just very real. Good stuff,
It is. It's nice
I
to see a
like the
good still
fact
life
that
like this.
I like the
isn't it?
fact that it's older cloth, not somebody went to the store and bought a new
Yeah.
piece of cloth. It actually likes it fitting there, and then that breadboard that's on top that, or the cutting board that fits on top, and it made that extra little texture within the scene.
Yep.
Yeah. I
Yep.
have a
Good.
I have a couple questions for you guys. Number one, um, do you see a plus sign behind the on the background that
Yeah.
that we should probably take care of? And my actually my question, because we talked, I know a word has come up like museum, and I know we're going to hear fine art, etc. At what point do we make the call to go into a museum type or gallery type matte, white, off white, whatever? And I know Kevy has a really good um, um, perspective on uh, mats when we're looking into the higher key mats.
Yeah.
I guess would it be better served with a museum type mat, or
I
what are your
think
thoughts?
I think this image is overall too low key to have any sort of a white fine art mat. And remember, guys, when we talk about a white mat, I always advise against using pure white. It's just far too bright. You can use 10 or 15%, and it still looks white to the eye, but it's not overwhelmingly backlit white. So avoid pure white. I think this is going to be better with this gray. I think a lighter matte, I think it would fool your eyes to making you lose the detail that's down in those dark areas, frankly.
I totally agree. I think you lose all kinds of feeling of
Yeah.
these little highlights in the front of the dresser there if you
Yeah.
go with a white
I
mat.
think white mattes look on the wall. Heck yes, Rick. On the wall, this would look so good with the white matte. Absolutely.
Okay. So
Yeah.
we're making a distinction then between competition and
Fine art.
Fine art for the
Fine
gallery,
art.
wall.
gallery, fine
Yeah,
art.
I think
Okay,
so. Yeah.
that's
I
I
agree.
guess that's where I was going with my question.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's
And
a
you
hard
went,
distinction. I know we're running over time, but that's a distinction that people have to realize that competition for PPA and states is one thing, but those a lot of times aren't inducive for a fine art gallery.
Right.
yeah,
Because a
good
white
call.
mat with the black frame on this image is stunning.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like a very wide white mat 8-ply with a thick bevel. Heck yes.
Yeah.
So pretty.
Good.
Good stuff, guys. All right. This next image, boy, the conversation this is going to draw. This is very creative. This is called Desert Sanctuary. Dennis, have at it, man.
I gotta look for a second. I go, somebody's not inviting me on all these trips, and I'm
I know,
pissed.
right? That's
Yeah,
what I was
no,
thinking too.
yeah, they're not inviting me on these trips. No, number one for them, no, the lighting on this, and then to put the light with the painted light on this, and the little chapel with a that you can actually see the interior, which is interesting. The blend they've done here. We got the skyline of the city lights. We got the blend of the lights around the building. We got the inside the interior, which just teases us with a little bit of what's inside, and then we got that little graveyard. I'm assuming it's a graveyard that's being
Yeah.
lit up there, and they got the candles on the outside. So this has been meticulously been prepped for this shot, and then to add later the shot with the stars and things going around. You know, somebody's done a fine job of putting this all together. And well, number one for me would be pre-visualizing how this is all going to come about. The steeple doesn't go to the top. We got a rule of thirds with the building on there with the anchor point of the fenced in cemetery part. So it makes this nice triangular composition and then just a nice background of the heavenly, which is kind of interesting because you look at it and it's got, here's this chapel, the church, and then you look at the big heavens, which gives you a big emotional feel for the image as well.
I like that it doesn't have the Milky Way in the background for change. They've just given us a regular sky.
Yeah,
Rick, what do you think?
I'm I'm really taken by the image, uh, and I think the points that Dennis covered are I can't add to it honestly. It's just striking composition to me.
Just
And
look at
now
every little feature. Look at the texture in the hills, the light in the distance. It's all just done so well. Kevin, what do you want to add?
It's been said. It's beautiful.
Even the mat, good choice of the mat size, the little stroke, everything. You know what's also stunning is look at here we have a dark, almost black steeple and a cross, and you can and against a black sky, you can still see it. I mean, it's not bold standing out like it's been lit up, but it's definable. You can easily see that it's there. That's smart. That's well handled.
Well, Jeffy, I think you guys need to make a new ruling. And when people enter these, they need to invite us to go with them to
Yeah,
reshoot. I think that needs to be a new ruling. I'm
agreed.
just saying.
I'm all for that. We'll vote on that one later, but I think the four of us are going to definitely vote for that one.
uh,
So, all right. Good stuff, you guys. Okay, this is called Desolate Destination. Rick, you can lead on this one, buddy.
yeah, um, great perspective. Obviously, got great leading lines, and I'm kind of looking at the uh, excuse me, the presentation. I'm kind of feeling that the mat itself is just a little bit narrow. I think we should have a little bit more width to the mat. I think it would be have a little bit more support to the image. Um, as far as uh, tonality and gradation, we're hitting a lot of um, a lot of zones here uh, that I think are covered fairly well. And the way that we have the lines leading into the little cabin is great. And you know what I'm going to say? You know,
Yeah.
just something or someone,
You want a family or one person on the walkway
one
there?
person, you could have them, you know, from the back leading us into that. Uh, but as it is, I think it's a strong composition. Um, the challenge I have is that the the mat is just a little thin for the mass of the image, if that makes any sense.
It's underwhelming.
Yeah.
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 Guys, anybody else want to add anything?
Yeah, let me jump in there real quick on a couple things. When I see an image like this that's clearly uh kind of a bullseye composition, which I tend to like on certain things, especially like this, and we have these lines that are coming out of essentially the corners. I would honestly like to see the maker tug and pull on this a little bit to get these legitimately pixel perfect in the corners because you're damn near there on all four of these. And if you put them there with intention, I think it's a pretty powerful move to make. Just put them in the corner, pixel perfect. You have all four of them so close. Do it and see what it looks like. It will require some stretching, um, but I think you can get it there.
Dennis, is this, I see where you're going. You thinking of a different crop?
I
Um,
just did that.
Oh, you did that, Rick? Okay.
Yeah,
that
just
was
for fun. Can you pull it up
Yeah.
from the bottom?
I see where you're going, Rick. Clear that line too, Jeff, when you get a
Yeah,
moment.
sure will.
Because to Kevin's point, so that this area and this area, is that right? What you're talking about, Kevin? Right in
Yeah,
the
I mean,
corner?
I was going to do that with the decking, but that's great on the rails too because now you have this. Now you've essentially lowered the
Perspective.
subject matter down here into the lower third, which is
Right.
fantastic by doing that. And you could still get those rails right out of the corner, and then these top ones in the corner too, if you wanted even.
Oh, there you go, Jeffy. Man, to me, that'd make a great panel.
It's cool, yeah.
That's what I'm wondering. I don't know if it's necessary to have all of that sidewalk
Only if you had
boardwalk.
a human element or another element, I should
We
say.
laugh, but you're right.
How
Yeah,
about a possum?
I,
Well,
yeah,
well, there's the other little thing there you guys haven't addressed is, the background off the right-hand side, the other building or trail that is kind of bothersome. But the title is called Desolate something, Desolate.
Desolate, yeah, desolate destination.
See, to me, this doesn't look desolate. So, maybe reframing it into a different title might help it a lot because to me, this doesn't look desolate, and so maybe just using different terminology to frame the image with that title.
Well,
yeah.
it's got that deep woods, forest kind of feeling. You could do isolated.
Now, if you could put some banjo music with that, and when the title comes up, maybe that'd work better.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
See, only us would know that stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah, well, before you said that, Denny, I was thinking, man, that'd be a cool place to go.
Again, again, they don't call us, do they?
All right. Well, check this one out, guys. This is totally shifting gears here. This is called In His Hands. Rick, go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of a capture, especially of the expression of the babe, uh, what more could you want? The comfort of the protector, it's all there. Um, but I'm seeing uh, a, a disconnect, I guess, between, uh, I'm going to assume the father and the babe. Um, you know, I would really appreciate seeing more of a connection between the protector and the babe. Um, uh, and kind of bothering to me. Maybe it would have a little more power if it was a horizontal crop that would include the elbows rather than cropping them off. But I get the story. We've got good directional lighting. I'm just sensing a disconnect that I would really like to have seen between the gentleman and the babe.
Kevin, thoughts?
Yeah, that's I was kind of wondering about that too with his elbows there. I agree with you, Rick, on that. That was my first instinct, in fact. And I gotta say, I really like this hit of his bracelet there. I love that. I would
Yeah,
just wish it was moved just a touch to the right, just a touch. But I think it's a good balance. I love that how it's lit there, and I love the lighting overall on this as well. Feels a little hot maybe on the child's face, but um, I think it's I like the lighting. It looks like it's one light essentially.
Looks like it's probably just a window lighter. It's
Yeah, like
definitely
a
one
window light.
source.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
nice. Yeah.
Dennis, anything you want to add?
Well, conversely, I didn't like the bracelet because I thought it broke up the synergy of the whole arm and everything going on. But I agree about the elbows and everything, and the lighting to me is obvious. It looks like to me it's all been lit and then toned down on the shoulders, leaving the chest a little hot. The baby's head, because if the baby's face was on our camera left was that hot, then that chest should be almost as hot as well. So you can tell it's been brought down to try to emphasize the baby out there. But my thing is why has the baby got clothes on? The dad's got his shirt off. Why has the baby got clothes on? And so that's part of the disconnect I'm feeling maybe there as well is that with the clothes and no clothes and see they're even tighter fits a little better for me as well. But I love that baby's laugh.
You
And
wonder
see
what he's
that
dreaming about.
well, I think he just peed on his dad.
That's why he's laughing.
Yeah.
Too funny. All right, good job, guys. Thanks. Let's see. Next we have Kaboom. Dennis, go ahead, man.
kaboom, no, that wave crashing, I could just hear that surf crashing. And I think what's interesting is that the point of view that the maker has presented this to us is that on the camera right, that rock outcropping is mimicking the wave going out. And it almost feels like it's too tight with me. I wish I could have seen more of the wave and everything going on. But, there again, this also feels I've seen a lot of highlights blown out, and maybe the exposure challenge. I mean, we got the rocks, we got the water waves, the highlights, the backlight coming through, and there again, I'm seeing a little banding come across in the background, and that would probably come from the processing. So uh, it's just a matter that all the highlights are blown out, and I'd like to see those brought down considerably more. And then in the bottom left, that one black spot that just grabs my attention, and then in the very center bottom yeah, I'm just crap here. This little spot right here bothers me, and then this area right here, I know what there's an out of focus area that just doesn't gel with everything else I'm seeing. But other than that, I think it's a real interesting image, and presentation would have helped guide direct us where to look. With a little darker, bring this down in tones and levels. I think this, and then put a high key matte on there. That well, or matte taking the tone out of the high key part of the image, I think would have helped us. But see right there, it feels like it's getting more dynamic already by bringing that down. See if you can bring the highlights down a little bit more. Bring those highlights down. And see, now I'm feeling more power in that wave. I'm feeling a lot more power and not losing those highlights.
Yeah, it does definitely pulls a little more impact into the whole thing, more punch into it. Kevin, what do you want to say?
Yeah, it's an impactful image right out of the gate. I mean, right when it pops up, it's one that stops you in your tracks, and then once you start looking around at it, it's one of those things where print it and hang it on your wall, and you're going to be like, dang, I should have taken care of that, this or that. Just like Dennis was saying, with the whites are quite blown out. I do love this mimicking here that you were pointing out, and I also am really thankful that the maker left this bit of background in there where you can see that tree and see a sense of location and scale. I think that might have been something I would have initially been tempted to crop away, and the more I look at it, I actually wish there were a little bit more of that to be shown off the right edge there.
Definitely adds some depth to the whole scene.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add, Rick?
No, no, it's been said.
All right, good stuff. We now have Lighting the Way. Dennis, I'll let you go ahead.
Well, hey, the title is the lighting the way. No, they're trying to give us a title of what to do, and yes, there's a light in the hallway, but it just feels like there's a lot of ambient light in there. Just not there's not a purpose of that lamp there because there's so much ambient light. And so I think bringing that down would have helped a lot on the edges and corners so that light would have created the shadows underneath the stairs on the wall. Because right now it feels very flat. We got a light in there, yes, we do, and the title tells us we do. And then we got the brick wall across the top that kind of breaks up the texture tone for me. I know I see it behind the staircase and things like that. And then we got parallel walls. No, they did a nice job keeping things parallel. But it's just that the lighting ratios for me, especially with the title that they're using, doesn't portray the storytelling that I'm looking for in this image.
One thing that hit me right off the bat is I like it's got, I mean, good straight lines and such, but it still has a low camera angle. And I almost feel like if we could have seen just a little bit of the decking of the second level up the stairs there, maybe the camera another foot higher, 2 feet higher, I think would have been, the lines have been straight, but I still feel like we're looking up. If we'd have come a little higher with the camera, we'd have had a little bit more command of this scene, and that stairway would have been a little bit more inviting, because it almost looks like it goes up and stops back there. It doesn't really show us where it's going, losing a little bit of that second deck. I mean, it's just more of an optical illusion, but
Could you bring
technically it's done very well.
could you bring the levels back up and just bring it down uh, the shadow part of the levels like we've done and um, the other way? I want to take out the highlights and bring the shadows up. See the light, we're losing it here. Come from the opposite end. There we go. You see, it just feels like, the light is, it's in the title, but it's not projecting to me what it's intended.
It's a little flatly lit based on the fact that it's lighting the way. I get the feeling lighting the way should be more of a direction, like telling us follow the light, or the light's telling me where to go.
That's what I would feel.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's bright up here where this light is, and it's bright down here, but it's not inviting us so much to go up into this stairway and see what's up there where the light's going.
Now, if we had a person in there, right, Rick?
Absolutely. You got it. Jeffy, I was playing around with, I don't know if you see my line that it was a
No.
crop from the top, just to crop
There
out
we
the
go.
brick.
Oh, okay. Well, let me take that into a crop tool here. So just eliminating that brick.
Yeah, yeah, right about there.
Could even
Because
come.
there's so much character in the image, but the brick um, just isn't in key or keeping, in my opinion, with the rest of the scene. Um, I just thought eliminating that just well, and it would keep our eyes more focused on the era. Yeah,
So what you're saying in a sense is this is more better.
more better, and and with the crop, even more better.
Even more better. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. This definitely brings us more into the stairway and the story that makes us want to follow the stairs more so here. So we're doing pretty well here, guys. We're more than halfway on the main part of the images here. So we have remembering childhood memories.
Well, I admire anybody that gets up and goes on the early morning and first in the fog. But as I'm looking at it again, I'm seeing, uh, the colored matte and presentation, and that doesn't quite flow with this thing. We need to have more of the gray tones, take a gray tone out of the tree and things. They've used the thirds. We got the anchor points of some trees in the far distance, but boy, I tell you, whether you guys see or not, I'm seeing banding, linear banding in this image all the way through this whole in the clouds and everything in the background. Uh, can you see it?
Yes.
Yes,
Are you seeing that, Jeff, on your computer?
That's what I'm drawing. Can you see my lines?
Okay, yeah,
Yep,
okay,
yep.
yep.
Yeah,
That's
I'm
what I'm
seeing
seeing
them
too.
all over the place here.
Yep, okay. Just wanted to make sure if you're seeing them, then they're there.
Yeah, it's
Oh, so if
unfortunately.
I say him, it's not. Is that it?
Well, if you see them, it's a Zoom. It could be a Zoom issue. If Jeff sees them from his computer, they're in the image.
They're there, yeah.
Yeah, they're there for
Hey, it's
sure.
it's whose name's on the door, Dennis?
Yeah,
Oh, I see how it works.
I didn't say anything.
All right, Mr. Neutral, what do you think?
Call me Switzerland.
Yeah, right.
No kidding.
it's a what a killer location. The fog and this beautiful big giant beautiful tree there. It's almost like the Shawshank Redemption tree, sort of a little
It
bit.
is, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Um, it's the foggy morning. I mean, that's just going to draw you to it for sure. And you don't know what's back there. It could be not a lovely scene behind this tree, or it could be really great on a sunny day. I don't know. Um, but
I
yeah,
think a lot of
the presentation and then the banding issues,
yeah.
for sure are knocking it.
I think a lot of times when you do a black and white image, when you're going to do a color in the mount, the matte, I think it's got to be, if you're going to do it, it's got to be really
It's
subtle.
tricky, huh? Yeah,
If not, just stay with the grays. Because the color coordination works, but it's asking for a lot of attention.
I think so too.
And obviously, maybe I've had people say, "Well, I brought the color in there to distract you from other things." Well, I've actually had
Yeah,
people tell that,
yeah.
and I go, "Well, then when I see things like that, I'm going like, well, then I start looking for more things."
Yeah.
This has been one of the shots. If they would have been pre-visualized into a pan stitch, and do make the tree a little in the far right or the far left. You could have flipped it in the same way and did it so it was smaller in the picture, but more of the landscape and more of the whites and those little trees in the background. It could have been an interesting uh, visual presence on this.
So more like maybe a 4-to-1 ratio
Yes.
and the tree way off to the left. Because I like how it's kind of almost just a little bit of a suggestion to start on my lower branches left and go to the right. Um, Lots of
Yeah,
things you could do there.
the image, yeah, you're right, Dennis. The image actually with that amount of fog, and if you have the fog that's going to hide a lot of that scene, this image is screaming for a lot of negative space
Yeah,
potentially.
gang, don't be afraid to go outside of the 4-to-3 ratio, or whatever the hell the ratio is of the 35 millimeter. Don't be brave and go outside of it. That's what's going to make your image stand out from not even just competition, but I think that's going to images that I've sold in galleries and such more times than not are some odd big square or a
Mm.
4 or 5-to-1 ratio. It's just unique pieces. Everybody shoots this. The phone can't the camera on the phone shoots this. Restful but watchful. Dennis, thoughts?
I'm just glad there isn't a long lens because he's looking at fast food, right? Um,
Fast food. Is that
Uh,
what you said?
yeah, fast food. He's looking at. I want to be with Jeffy at that point because I know I could probably outrun Jeff. Um, um, Interesting shot. The placement with the eyes is obviously this cats in under a overhang or a cave or something, and they've brought the information out. But there, thank you. You did exactly what I was going to say. We need to see more of the cat in there, but then I'm seeing kind of a little halo across the back end of it. Um, but there again, no, right there, that shows more of the cat. We do have a big shadow on our camera right behind his shoulder and ear. And then before you moved it up in the upper left, those there was those let me grab those. There's a bunch of spots and things. I know they're
Yeah.
minute, but they showed up a lot. This easily could have been cropped down, something like that, made it a little more powerful, and just bringing out there the black and white. This area could have been toned down a little bit more, and I think the total black matte, using a black matte like this, what it makes it automatically visually makes your image look underexposed. So grabbing a gray tone or something out of the image to make your matte presentation and a little bigger, a little wider to support the image. With this has been kind of a theme tonight, but a little more support on the image. But grabbing a tone out of the image instead of using the default black, and then because automatically when it goes to black like that, it's going to make the image look underexposed. And see, there's a little stronger image right there. I believe is just bring it in.
You're doing what I was going to say, Jeff. I actually like the original tonality, but if you cropped much tighter to the face on the original tonality, I think it would be a pretty strong image too. But with that original tonality, it needs to be tight. Yeah, maybe a little up, but it's
All right, let me do this here. Hold
yeah,
on.
but if you're tight on that and then bring that tonality up a little bit more, but not as much as you have it there, I think that's a pretty strong image.
So back in like this, but you're talking about a
Kinda, yeah.
tighter crop yet?
Yep. Square, probably.
Yeah, you don't need to show that much of a body.
No, the body needs to just go away. I think tighter yet, honestly.
Seriously,
Yeah,
I can do that. I have those tools.
I know you do.
I have the wrench there to make it tighter. Something
you
like
have
that.
you have a special set of skills.
His name's on the door.
Yeah,
Larry got that one, didn't you, Larry?
I would lighten it up just a head, just to get just a little bit more contrast in there. But I think
Yeah,
that's
and then I would go in and selectively lighten areas too, lighten up some of the
that
whites
eye
and
just a little bit
yep,
more.
exactly.
Yeah,
I'd maybe hit some highlights on the leg, the back.
this lighter one is a little better. The initial
bring some light out
darkness was
there.
yeah, it was too dark for me, and that splitting the difference helped out a bunch. But yeah, we're losing that whole camera left side of the face. It's almost like a split lighting coming from a window on the right,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
almost a split lighting on that face.
I think it's the right idea. Going that dark is giving us the intensity and the fact that it's almost asleep but still watching. It really helps with the story.
And how cool,
But
and it would be too much cropping on this image, but how cool would it be to have like just an image that's just that?
in a 40 by 60 or 40 by 40 on
Yeah.
your
I mean, that's intense. But it's too much. I mean, the resolution
just
probably isn't there to do it here, but it could look pretty cool. We hung up in some of the, yeah, like real tight on the nose, just kind of insinuating something evil, something menacing.
definitely a conversation starter.
Yeah.
All right.
Our
Uh,
We're
viewers
gonna
can come and go all they want. We're the ones
we're
stuck.
changing strokes here a little bit. We're going with this is called standing tall.
Well, I absolutely. I actually like it. It looks like something like out of the movie Showgirls, something like that. This is one of those images that is kind of a mystery, but you want to see the face. But to me, we're using the dynamics of the body and the curve, the black, and I'd like to see a little bit more detail in the arms and the camera left, because right now it looks like her hand is just blasting out of an inky blackness, and there's a tool called Liquify that is amazing, that you could have, fixed that underneath her arms and shoulders or back right there to get those lumps out of right there. Yeah,
Those little things,
those little
yeah.
things could have been smoothed out because the rest of her body is looking pretty good.
Even
And
that little area.
just because you have them, and then there's another area right here where you're peeking through the white area right there, and then we got these areas like this right here that we see that's a challenge. But we got some highlights on the face that's a challenge as well. I like the idea and the thought, but what about if you cropped it up a little bit more and without having all this extra black here? Just a thought.
Rick, are you good? You want to
I
jump in?
think, yes, thank you. Great points,
So I'm
Dennis.
sorry, real quick, Dennis, you want to pull it in this way?
Not really. Not really. I like that, but I'm talking about the bottom, just right at the curve of the rump, up below, right there,
Below, okay.
just right there at the curve. But the highlights, like I say, it's just losing everything, the details and all the black. Although maybe that was intent and purposes of it, but um, there again, it's still like this. So her arm isn't pulling out that inky blackness. That's too much of it.
This isn't going to look good because it is black, but if you can visualize just having a little bit of the definition of the sleeve to the shoulder gives you that depth. I think that's kind of what you're going for, right,
Yeah.
Dennis?
Yes, I think so. That's just my opinion, and
Uh,
Rick, what do you
I
think?
agree. I agree with everything Denny was saying, and I really appreciate the concept. Um, we're really working towards a very glam type of a portrait here. Unfortunately for me, we just fell short of the glamour lighting. And the evidence for me is in the catch lights. The
Yeah.
catch lights in any portrait reveals so much information. To me, um, you know, the lighting is glamorous, but it's flat. Unfortunately, I'm sorry to be so blunt, but if we'd have raised that light and put a butterfly type of a shadow, well, it would have been a butterfly shadow under the nose, much more flattering and glamorous because she has the structure, the facial structure, and the beauty to handle. Not all subjects can handle butterfly lighting. Uh, Obviously, she can. And then it takes us back and, reminiscent of um, the golden years of Hollywood and how they lit their uh, their female subjects and even some of the male subjects.
This is called The Work That Was. The Work That Was.
Gosh, I feel like there's a lot of foreground that probably doesn't need to be here. I think this is a great opportunity for a 2-to-1 or even a 3-to-1 crop here. And yeah, already just getting there,
Too
we're looking at
much.
a
More?
No, I think even more probably.
right up to
Yeah.
the bottom of the fence,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
and
So
then
it's like
cut the
it'll
crop
be
those there bushes.
almost a 3-to-1, Jeff. Almost a 3-to-1. Yeah.
Would you bring this down too?
Yeah, I think so. Um, and then there's some banding in the skies here too, but compositionally now we're getting really close to where I think the maker saw when they walked by this, really powerful kind of these dilapidated buildings up here. Super harsh lighting, tough to work with on these kinds of conditions, with the direct sunlight. You can see the hard shadows, pretty difficult lighting situation. And I feel like yeah, what you're doing there, Jeff, is helping a lot. Because the tonal range was quite abrupt, wasn't it? We had a lot of
Yeah,
like
we
flat grays
yeah.
in the foreground, and then we had some weird contrasting things happening in the buildings and trees back here with this kind of these weird areas back in there. Let me get the right tool I can draw with better, more
Well, it's
gooder.
hard. I think just real quick, those are the things you run into when you shoot at the middle
Yeah,
of the day kind of thing.
yep. It's
When you get that
tough.
harsh, and it's tough. You get no clouds, you get no filtration, you get
And if
that bright
you're in an
sky.
area where you can go back and photograph, but many times we're traveling and we can't.
Yeah.
So we have to work with what we have. Luckily, black and white is more forgiving for those hard shadows and those types of things. We can embrace them. And potentially the maker did walk up and do some of that stuff on these homes and get some of that beautiful texture of the wood. And the difference between that silo that's back here and the building, that section there is beautiful contrast, and the white and the dark here,
Yeah.
that's a great composition right there. So maybe the maker has a few of those too.
Well, I think they've actually got a twofer here. I think they got,
Twofer.
well, they got a shot right here, and they got another shot,
Yep.
well, over
That's
here.
kind of what I was going for the
Then they
crop
got
tool
Yep.
in.
they got a crop tool, so they got a twofer. So, I like what's happening there. Well, crop out this building here, but
Oh,
there's that old, yeah, you could crop out that building there, and they got a shot there, and then you go the other direction, you got the shot the other way, and the fence line is leading a diagonal right into that lower left corner of the way we had that crop, and I thought it was very strong. That could have been that way. And then this is the second crop. I wish the tree was all in there instead of hitting the edge of the border.
Mm.
Um,
this guy over here.
yeah, I wish that tree was there. And if I was shooting that much stuff, I'd probably have a shot with all it in there. But like I say, it's got a lot of potential with working on the banding, of course. But then just look at the cropping. Always look for different things you can shoot in the same area.
Yeah, that's true. Anytime I've seen buildings like this, there's lots of and not to say that you didn't get those, Maker, but just look at those possibilities when you've got multiple buildings. There's so many different stories. These trees alone would be phenomenal.
Yeah. And the more I look at this, I do really like this, like a vertical right here. Just that. I think that's cool.
Just the front of the building there.
Yeah, with the silo in the background, I think just that.
Let's
Yeah,
just do that real
just a
quick.
quick vertical on that.
Just get those couple of fence posts in there a little bit.
A three for
A
Look at
three
that.
for,
We make it a little bit more bigger so we can see it.
yeah.
But the
Yeah,
time
that's
of day
cool.
is like the time that shot is there, but the time of day is not conducive to the
No,
capture. But
it's tough. Tough time of day. If to the maker, if they're watching, if you can go back on a cloudy day or an early morning light, it's
It's a great area, definitely.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think that would work in your favor.
Get a storm, some clouds, and
Dark background.
and a model in the foreground. Just kidding. I'm thinking for you, Rick.
you want
Hi.
a bride in the foreground. This one. All right, we're moving on to
Oh,
volcanic wasteland. Kevin, go ahead.
Yeah, really loving this, really enjoying this lead in here with those rocks leading you in and to frame there. Let me get the right tool again. But the way that that's leading you in and I'm kind of serpentining back through this to this subject matter back here.
Yeah.
It's interesting. What I like this at first, and I'm really enjoying the foreground. I'm having a difficult time with the sky though, because it doesn't feel long exposure. It feels gauzy and blurred to me. I'm not sure if you guys are seeing that or not as
Good
well.
point. Good
Yeah, I see what
point.
you're talking about now.
It's not a long exposure blur of clouds. It's a Gaussian blur of clouds.
Well, Kevin, with your experience, if it was a whatever you want to consider long exposure, and obviously not a 30 seconds or whatever, but
Yeah.
what if it was just enough the clouds were moving fast enough it was a quarter of a second or a half a second that you get just a tiny bit of movement? Is
Sometimes
that
those can be just as annoying because you have an abrupt start and stop with clouds too. It's you either need enough movement to really drag them out
right?
softly,
Or none?
or no movement at all. Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Yeah, because we talk about stories. I mean, sometimes the clouds are cool, but I mean, you got, let's
But
just,
tonally, it's really nice. The really dark foreground is really quite nice with these white rocks in here,
yeah,
and the location is stunning.
the clouds aren't as obvious.
Yeah, that's
Here
true.
you got that line that you talked about coming from this
Yep,
rock through it up to the peaks.
sure.
So consider that one too. Or what? This one's called Weathered. Somebody's trying to log into the show from Singapore. I
Hmm.
have no idea who that would be, but this is called Weathered. Dennis,
I was
it's in your back.
expecting to see a pit portrait of you, Jeff.
Oh,
It's how I feel. Yeah. Whoops.
I'm just kidding. So, no, great shot, weathered. All these, uh, whatever this is out here, device out here in the water, and this is the case where they've used a longer exposure to get the water to blur like this, and the clouds, because the water and the clouds are moving different speeds, as I may say, we get different variations of the speed because the water's blurry, the clouds aren't as much. Like we looked at, not to compare the previous one, but you got different. But then we got the challenge for me is again is these highlights, these clouds that are causing for me uh draw my eye out of the photo. And then we got the photo almost dissected in the center. And if we could have, do we really need to have this much space here? Maybe do a little cropping and help out that way. But that's just my opinion. The tonalities are wonderful. The look, it's just got a nice look. Yeah, there we go. And then again,
Agreed.
a presentation would have been awesome on this.
Rick, anything you want to add?
man, I'm really captivated by this image. Um, and I really enjoy this crop. And I agree that top, uh, cropping down from the top eliminated that area here that could have been toned down, but it did push that horizon line off near the
Right.
center. Uh, uh, man, I'd really like to see a print of this. Well, well done.
Let me try something here. We don't do this in competition, as you all know, but let me, oops, get rid of the tool there, Jeffrey. Um, look at the detail, the light wrapping around these posts. I mean, you talk about subtle and sweet, the dimension. I mean, a great tonal range from highlight to shadow, even back in these ones in shadow. Look at that. That's what a long exposure will do for you, but it just gives those that whatever this is, looks like is that a pulley in the middle there, hanging out right there. It gives this piece that wonderful depth and dimension that, again, standing out. Now, I think the longer exposure obviously has given us a smoother water, but it's also done just the right amount to the clouds that give them enough of that softness so the movement feels intentional and artistic and not like again, we don't compare images in competition, and I'm not trying to say one's better than the other, but this is the point we were trying to make earlier about this being probably more the sky we're looking for with long exposure. Whispers in Stone. Waterfall. Dennis, got your name all over it.
It seems like I've seen this somewhere before, and it's like probably somewhere
In
judging,
the
but
Maybe in the Louvre or something, or in the
Well,
well. Yeah. Um, Interesting shot, Whispers in Stone. A great title, and that tells us that the sounds and softness there. But as I look at it, they've done a nice job of bringing it from the upper left, bringing it down to the center, and then it kind of fades back in an S-shaped curve back out the same way it came in. Kind of, I actually like the big log in the foreground. It actually acts as an anchor point for me. Looking at this image, an anchor point as keeps me from going out of the photo. It I feel like the presentation is a little lacking. When I say lacking, we're using a dark black, a default black, and we need to take a black because we're got a cool black versus warm black, a cool black on the presentation, and we need to grab the tone out of the photograph and make it probably twice that size. But there again on this shot, nice shot with the foliage on the left hand side. It it looks like me a little cloning or something, filling some spots there. I'm just seeing some things, but nevertheless, I think it's a nice shot, nice tonalities, and just we need to work on those highlights in the water a little bit because they're blowing out. But no, overall, it's a nice shot.
Kevin, go ahead. What you
Yeah.
think?
I feel almost like the maker may have been increasing some of these highlights in the water with intention. I'm not sure, but um, what is working well for this is the fact that it looks to be captured on a cloudy day. And I'm telling you now that if you're capturing water like this, it needs to be a cloudy day. When you're
Yes.
in the woods and you're going to have a lot of white water like this, the clouds are your favorite. It's a big giant softbox up there. And it looks like, maybe some water was was highlighted in some of these areas, and with intention. And maybe, yeah, maybe a little bit too much. I'm kind of enjoying that contrast. It's surrealistic to me. This you can still see a lot of detail or plenty of detail on the lower edge, which is really quite nice because this is a lot of times where you lose a lot of detail and it's there. Look at its lovely tonality there.
Yeah.
But I do see what Dennis is saying about some of that maybe being a little touch too bright. I'm enjoying this image though, compositionally. I don't know. Would you like to see this coming out of like where it's not just coming just out of the frame, like where it's cropped in, so you don't actually know where the waterfall is coming out of?
No,
I wonder.
I want to see that blank spot because
You
it looks.
do, yeah.
Well, the
I
reason
kind
why is that
yeah.
anytime you put a white object against your presentation or dark against another presentation, it will lead your eye out of the photo quicker compositionally. So now we have that space where we got up here that we can work with. And if you had that, just out of curiosity, Jeff, bring a crop into that.
And
Uh,
sometimes though, waterfall's so tall you can't possibly get it, and so
mm,
it's kind of
this,
nice to
but
just
this
have
one
that.
isn't. Yeah, this one isn't. I think it works.
So you're saying bring the crop down into that?
Right, bring it right down to the water. I just want to.
What if I go like that? Before, after.
That's where we have different people's opinions.
Well, and seeing the crop, for my 2 cents worth, the other crop, Jeffy,
What's
and
that?
and I would tell you what would make this a loan collection, but I'm out of time.
That's mean. Go ahead.
Ah, no, go back to that crop, please. Okay, if it were submitted this way, just from my own experience, on a panel, there might be a judge that might say a lot of foreground. I wish I'd have seen more on the top. Uh, how do you feel about that comment, Dennis?
I'd probably be that judge.
Ah,
Well, do you think this crop balances that better, Rick?
I think this crop bounces it perfect.
I do
Yeah.
too. Sorry, Carrie, but
No
I,
worries.
Hey, one other thing that I'll see, and this is one of those things that's just personal, but I've heard this in judging and I'm seeing it too. Little things catch your eye and you can't stop. This little point of this rock breaking this long, nice line right here. Even this dark area, I see those. If it was my image, I'd take those out. Um, Again, it sounds trivial, but that's, just asking. There's a nice horizon line, if you will, of that waterfall that separates the foreground and the flow down here. But that little point just keeps pulling my eye for, and I can't decide why.
Well, I had to tell you a story. I had an image entered of a waterfall, and it had a lot of deadfall at the bottom of the fall, and I thought it added to like this. And a judge says, "Now, if they would have just taken all that deadfall on and all those logs out, this would have been a great shot." It's nature. It's what it is.
Well, that's true. That's
And
true.
you don't want to be doing things. So it comes to a point where you accept the image, but I think they did a nice job in handling that log at the bottom as an anchor point.
Well, also too, look at I think the timing that's chosen on the length of exposure to get the water. There's flow and softness, but there's still a nice texture to it that doesn't, it's just a happy medium. I think that was done very well. So we now have one called Window to the Soul.
I'm going to start writing down all these titles.
I know. Well, Rick and I have been after these guys to think about titles for many years. They're doing a good job, don't you think, Rick?
No,
Instead of just
absolutely.
saying waterfall or monkey or
Right.
something. So,
Absolutely.
Kevin, go ahead and jump into this one, bud.
Yeah, I'm digging this composition, the tight crop. I'd like I gotta tell you, I'm a little bothered by this leaf down here. And you guys might feel otherwise about it, but I'm a little bothered by it being there and by its flatness and tonality. But I'm really loving the texture that's in
Yeah.
the skin here and
Oh, yeah.
in the hair through here. It's just beautiful texture everywhere. Overall, I think this is a well-handled image, tonality wise, and then I'm just drawn by that leaf that's just keeps pulling me out of frame there. And I don't even
Yeah.
mind this void up here actually that much.
Well, that gives a little bit of depth,
I
allows
think
for
so
roundness
too.
on top of the head. But you're right, that leaf is pulling attention.
I think so.
It's one of those things that if you're to enter in a PPA competition, there's not much you can do with that leaf. But if you're going to just have it as an art piece of your own, just use the AI tool and get rid of that, and I think
You
you'll have
could,
that.
yeah. I think you probably could. The key line's also quite, if we're going to talk about the presentation, the key line's
Yeah.
I think really competing too. It's quite thick.
One other thing I would do just a little bit is you see the highlight there in the eye. I would just bring
Yeah.
this one up a little bit too
Yep.
to
To match.
just to show a little match, but to show a little bit more roundness and depth to the
Yeah.
eyes.
Yeah.
Mm.
Rick, anything you want to add?
No, I'm sorry. Yes. Uh,
If
I
you say no, you
thoroughly,
got to shut up. Then you can't start talking.
you're a mean man.
Go,
I
go
just felt,
ahead.
I felt the matte could be a little bit darker, because there's a lot of deep, um, uh, dark areas, shadowed areas, and beautiful highlights. And I think a darker matte would uh, would support that. I'm not saying black, but just a darker,
It would help
darker.
bring the highlights out for sure.
Yeah, yeah,
Help them
Maybe
pop.
even tone the key line could be half the size and just a little softer as well too.
You
yeah,
could even be vignetting it a little bit up here in this corner too,
Yeah.
darkening that corner
Yep.
a little bit
Yep.
to help
Well, if you
draw.
actually, that's a good point, Kevin. If you were to vignette this, let me get my pen back here. If this was vignetted here and vignetted here, you
Yep.
could bring this down a little bit and you'd really make this face stand out. Get rid of the leaf. That face would really stand out, highlight those eyes, like I mentioned. And you're going to now have a lot more roundness in the
Mhm.
head and the face, the
Mhm.
cheek down there. We now have an image called, you're going to love this one, guys. Let's see, I got to get it open here so I can. Cow tipping, cowboy style.
uh,
Rick, what do you think?
excuse me. I think it's a photojournalistic image. Man, right time, right place. Um, Certainly a story being told there. Um, I guess my concern is I'm seeing this image, um, in terms of a the exposure. Maybe if we could bring the highlights down. I understand midday, it appears to me. Uh,
Kind of
but
lacking punch, isn't it?
yeah, yeah, there you go. We've got the white hats, and what are you going to do? I mean, in these conditions, it's not like we're going to set things up and uh, in a um, on a
Right.
on a sound stage or movie stage.
We
We
got a
only
high contrast here is what they're kind of fighting.
right.
We got a lot of ambience. You got a lot of dust in the scene and things going on,
Right.
and the time of day is killing it. And then, unfortunately, it's the camera angle. You got all that highlight behind the grandstands is a challenge. But you're right. All the Cowboys have to have their white hats on. They're all the good guys, and they're showing up. I think the important part, could we crop off, the girl and the guy on the far right, maybe bring our attention a bit more? I mean, you could, are they necessary? I mean, maybe it's a dad and sister, but see, to me, that brings it a little tighter in without being so centered there. So that brings it down a little bit more for me. I love that guy. It looked like the guy from uh, the TV show. The one guy is looking over the,
This guy up here.
yeah, just one little guy that's cowboy, just his eyeballs over.
Oh, right there. Yeah, yeah. He's a oh gosh, what was the old Kilroy was here
Gilroy, yeah.
for us old timers.
But the biggest thing you hit it, Rick, is I felt like it was a little flat and he adjusted. But it's a lot of times that flatness and that contrast range is really tough to adjust, being just the time of day and the exposure that it had.
Um,
Well, I love the angle that the fact that the photographer was able to get down at ground level. I mean, look at this floating calf, this or floating cows that another yoga pose kind of a thing.
eh,
Cow yoga.
Cow yoga.
Cowga.
All right, I'll stop you right there. Okay. For whom the bell tolls. Oh, that's a mouthful. Kevin, what do you think?
Yeah, let me get in here for a second. This is that kind of architecture where I had to adjust when I moved from Denver to Charleston. This is what I see a lot of, this kind of old architecture, and it took a
Right.
while for me to adjust to photographing this. It's tricky. There's so much potential here, and I'm not even bothered by the keystoning as much as there's a few other things, and that's the flatness in the sky and a couple highlights that are down, this little light spillage down on these guys here and kind of spilling out in some of these locations here. It's overall, it feels a little muddy, and then the sky comes in and really um, needs to be worked. The sky, the contrast in the sky needs to be quite worked. If the maker can, this is another one of those. If the maker can go back on a cloudy day, so you don't have these hard shadows, I think you'd be doing yourself a favor.
This is definitely an infrared day, isn't it? Of course,
Could be, yeah.
I don't think this would photograph any differently on infrared. You'd get a blacker blue in the sky.
It's almost like no clouds would have been better than some clouds.
Yeah, because it's more of a stark statement than
Yeah, because you could really darken the sky down against this really white brick, and have a black sky against that. It would be really striking at that point. Again, I realize a lot of times we're traveling and we can't go back and get these things.
we start getting into this kind of density. You get some
The
nice.
sky's looking good now, and then the foreground needs help.
Well, I don't even mind that this area here has gotten awfully dark, but I don't mind the texture here and the wall
Yeah,
itself there's still enough definition in there to let it be itself. But and another
yeah,
thing that when we talk about this kind of stuff, free will, I'd cut the flag out of there.
yeah. I was just about to go
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. If it
Yeah.
was furled, if it was flowing and it showed but just hanging there,
Yep.
it's like, what is that kind of thing? I give it. And
And it
yeah,
would need to be going this way.
yeah, to give it the flow of the whole image. But I'd
Yep.
just go ahead, I'd cut that out of there altogether. I love the clouds now. Look at the billowy feeling that we've given to
Mhm.
them and falling off over here. And the building, the tower held up real well. You could go in and maybe just lighten up the bell and that to not lose that back edge. Maybe lighten up this part. I don't even mind the back part of the tower here, and I really like this wall, what's happened here. And then one other thing, again, we get right down to the nitty gritty. The keystroke, I think you've done a good selection with the black and the white, but I maybe would take that keystroke down to 50%. You don't want to lose it in this cloud over here, but it's pretty strong. Or maybe detach it and knock it way down to 1 pixel, two
Be
pixels.
fair, it may not have been that strong before the
Oh,
contrast adjustment. So,
yeah,
yep.
yeah, yeah. My bad. Just watch for those kind of things.
Well, there, in addition to all you said, this has got some issues, like you talk about the flag, but the little light things.
I was going to ask you about that. What do you think of that? I mean, that's just you can't.
Well, if you can take them out, I mean, are they my question is if I take something out, or at least, I mean, is it adding to the presence of the image?
Yes.
And if it's not, then take it out. So they're not they're on the
Agreed.
building here, and they're not showing up as much. But when they're dangling down on these wires like that, then it becomes very obvious to me.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Agreed.
Yeah, you can see them. They're all over the edge of the building. That's fine, but it's these guys that are hanging here that you're talking about, right? Even this, I might question that loop there, but
Yep.
um, yeah, good stuff, guys. Just a few more here for tonight. So we have one called Frostbite. Over this says Dennis all over this one here.
Yeah, yeah. It looks like some of my winter excursions going out with the frost and the hoarfrost and the mist
Exactly.
and frost, and what a beautiful shot there. And I like the fact that they've got the layers coming in with the layers of the trees, the trees and the landscape, and then all the background, the fog coming in. Do we want to have all these trees in the background sticking out like that? Maybe, but this
I
is
mean, this
just,
stuff here.
yeah. I like it there, but there's one thing that bugged me is those things right there. I mean, you can't do anything because it is nature, but it feels there again. This whole scene seems a little flat for me. It's probably early dawn and breaking light, and it just feels a little flat. It maybe either go one way, go more high key, or bring it down into exposure. But I think it's very cool, and that they put it on the uh, right side, the rule of thirds. It's got the PowerPoint, and they didn't put it exact. That is not exact white. That is some white out of the background they've adjusted. So kudos to the maker for making that.
So maybe something more in here.
You could do that, or take it clear to more high key landscape, or go the totally other direction.
Oops, I could turn the layer off. Got to leave the eyeball on, you guys. I don't know if you knew that.
No way.
So you're looking maybe more into here.
Yeah. Now see, now that really adds an air of mystery, in the whole
We
thing,
can go
and
push it quite a bit there, can't we? So here's a 4, and afterwards,
see, that really shows. You could title it "Foggy Morning" or whatever one some did, and use the title of what you want to judges to look at. Because I'm still seeing detail in the background through the fog.
well, it plays down these bright highlights on these trees somewhat, so they're still they still work, but they're not as prominent as without it. But it works up way up in here in the slope of the mountain in the shadow too. That's nice. Kevin, Rick, anything you want to add? We lost Rick. Kevin?
It's been said.
Aspen said, okay.
That's been said.
So our next image is called Heart of the Canyon. Good movement in here. Nice, again, nice tonal range. I like even letting the sunlight kind of break through the glare, which is, I know it goes against us old timers. We were always taught no glare, no flare. That's a no-no. But it nowadays it works, but it's giving us some little bit of relief and a point to go follow through. Beautiful lines of the whole canyon. I mean, it really gives us depth. This wall builds up a nice relief for us to want to follow through the tunnel here. Um,
Well, it looks like a heart. I think that's what's called the heart of the canyon. The
right,
lighting and everything
exactly.
coming there. But do me a favor and do bring some the tonalities down and because to me it still feels muddy. I know we're seeing all the things there. It depends on what direction you want to go, but um,
It
I
does
feel
need more contrast. Yeah.
I feel it needs to be brought down a little bit more. Like, bring the other side in.
More in there.
It's just personal taste. I mean, look at there. Then there was a little light more. This is a little more um, darker soul type thing, but you still got detail. And the challenge is maybe even fix this part right in here. The highlights that's coming and flaring on the wall. Maybe fix that.
This right here.
Yeah. But see, look at the difference on the tonalities and the contrast versus the previous one.
It does add just a little more punch, a little more depth to it. Just be careful you don't lose details up in the top up here in the shadows. This little area here you could be lost very quickly, but it does give it.
Mm.
Kevin, anything else you want to add?
Yeah, when I first was looking at that section you were pointing out, Jeff, over there where that highlight is, let me get my pen. Just kind of that area right in there.
Yeah.
I was thinking originally I thought maybe it would be nice to not even have that sky there. But the more I'm looking at it, I think it's important to have it there so that you have a sense of place and which way is actually up.
Oh, that's a good
Um,
point.
yeah, because on one point it would say, how high is it and how high does it go? But then I think that sky, that hit of sky does add a little bit of sense of scale and location. So I think it's important to have there. I do agree with the changes that have been made. It still feels a little muddy in places down here and up here. It's not a global fix, guys. This kind of an image is not going to get there
Right.
globally. You'll have to go in and you have to go in and brush and dodge and burn
Mask.
traditionally.
Yeah, just this area down here you mentioned,
Yeah.
Kevin, you could easily go in
Yep.
and dodge and burn and just bring out these highlights
Yeah.
that
This
are
is
in here
not an
just a
image
little bit.
that's going to get there with sliders. You got
No,
to go
take
in.
these shadows down. This area here could get lost, but there's just a little highlight along this ridge and a little highlight along in here. Same with up here, little highlights here, some angled highlights that keep us in the scene. But
Mm,
yeah, if you let this go you're going to have a big black box up there that especially a judge is going to say, whoa, what's going on?
mhm,
Um, even like nice little tonal little striations in that they're continued over in this area, they're continued down here and they're vertical so you can see. So just yeah, bring those things out. Same with this little panel right here. There are some vertical striations in there. And it's not gonna, like you said, it's not gonna take a slider. It is gonna take some masking, burning, not even burning and dodging, just some masking.
It's
That would
fun to
be,
work on these types of images with the brush tool. Just go in
oh
there with your
yeah.
brush and do some burning and dodging. It's actually very fun to do.
Well, it's you're painting and you're creating
Yeah.
so much depth to it. It's really a lot of fun that way. So now we have an image called Silent Majesty. Dennis, your thoughts, please.
I'm still about those not taking us to their trips. Um,
I know, right?
the layer depth of this is great, and they got the cornered of the looks like the San Juan there, but they got the corners of the mountains in the corners, bringing attention to the mountains, and the light is teasing you all the way up. You got little tibbits of light and shadows, and little nuances, and but then as I work my way up, I get above the rim, and then I got banding in the sky the whole way across, and it kind of striates, and then it has a tonality change in the whole thing, which it too bad because I actually like the darker sky across the top, kind of like an infrared kind of look, but it's not. But we got that banding that's really a challenge for me. I don't know if anybody else has seen it or not, but
Yeah.
um, I'm seeing the banding in the sky, and that's due from over processing. And then you got, you got this area right here that's really overpowering. It's one of the darkest areas in the whole image that would need to be toned. And so I don't know, would you need that? Maybe crop right there so you don't need that whole space. So just an idea thought.
So I just went in and opened up the shadows. I like the overall darkness, the density when it first came up. This, It's very uh,
I
midnight, but
yeah.
all I did was go in and I opened up the shadow so we see the striations on that and in here, and still kept the punch in the whole scene.
I feel like this
I
is
don't
one of
know.
those images, Jeff, where it would almost benefit to have the more localized or yeah, not global, but localized contrast
Each of these
control.
areas.
So a flatter
Yeah.
contrast towards the background and a more contrast in the foreground because overall I like the density here, but it needs
Yeah.
more pop in some of these little areas right in here. Just needs a couple slashes of pop on some
Yeah,
of these
exactly.
light. But then the flat contrast back here kind of works in its favor, frankly, I think. This is Dead Horse
Well,
Point. I know the area well.
right.
Um,
When you get that depth to a scene like this, the less contrast the background gives you that depth,
I think
and you
so.
have
I
a
mean, we're
contrast in
wanting
the
to kind of
foreground.
focus kind of on some of these little
Yeah.
elements here and have some pop and light here, maybe a little bit a pool of light right in there. This is all brushed in lighting. It'd be fun to do.
You could even, like you say that, but you could even highlight these highlight areas just a little bit more.
Maybe,
Bring just a little bit more of the highlight into the water. This little
mm.
top, just very subtle. I mean, very subtle. And it's going to introduce this foreground even stronger to the viewer as they come in.
This part right here is very intriguing to me. Just that
That look,
section there is really
yeah.
quite nice.
Rick, where does the family fit into this one here? Would you put them
Teeny
on the
tiny down
ridge
there, a
right
little
there?
tent.
Would you put the stagecoach and the family and the horses right over here and or over there? Okay.
It's Thelma and Louise's car went off that drive somewhere, right?
Somewhere in the middle, except they were up on top. But yeah, it was in that area. Yeah, I was talking to actually somebody not too long ago about that, and we were laughing about Brad Pitt being in there. Like Brad Pitt wasn't in that movie.
Yeah, he sure was.
Yeah, he sure was. All right, this one is called The Sculptor's Veil. Just Dennis, I'll let you go ahead, but just stop and look at the roundness and the lighting, and just feel that. Well, you can almost feel the mist on your face.
Well, I can feel a mist and I can hear the water crashing down there.
Yeah.
What I feel is sadness that they don't ask us to go. Um, But the lights coming down there, we got some shadows and lights coming down there. The maker's done a nice job of capturing the whole feel. I mean, we got a lot of highlights on the rock because of the way the angle of the lights coming in there. And unless you wait for hours or you come a different day or the sky's different, you're going to get that kind of look. Again, we got the rocks and the logs at the foreground for anchor points, but I'm feeling like that these are still too bright and they could be brought down, as well as some of these areas need to be brought down. And we got some bright areas here. And, so if we're going contrast, I understand that we got contrast there, but this whole thing here needs to be equally brought down to that tonality. And then that would really jump that. And I think maybe a little bit more contrast in this would help out as well.
Do you get the feeling, Kevin and Dennis, that maybe I get the feeling that there's a like a vignette or the
Yes,
edges have
Yes,
been
I do
burned
yes,
feel.
down
Yep, I feel
yes,
that.
a little too much? Yeah.
yes.
I mean, I know you've got some strong light on the waterfall and the shadows in them, but I think if you've brought those edges down in, like if you do a linear gradient or something on this slope right here, you need to bring back the contrast, bring back the whites and the highlights so that it goes darker, but it doesn't just go flat. This
That's what
whole,
I see there is the
yeah, that whole
flatness, the
quadrant
mud,
just
the
seems
muddiness that we
muddy.
call it. Yeah.
Yeah, muddy.
It's yeah, I was seeing that too when it first came up. This whole branch here,
Oops, go ahead, sorry.
the whole log, all of that it just
Yeah.
feels quite muddy, if you will.
Composition, cropping, you're good with that? You like all that?
I do.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, I do.
Rick, anything else you want to add?
No, that was going to be my point about the vignetting and the muddiness, and um, it's kind of abrupt, especially from the left side, if you look at the boulder here, um, right here,
Oh
it
yeah.
it drops off quite a bit right about there. It's just the vignetting or toning down or whatever isn't congruent with the main image as I see
Yeah.
it.
Right. Yeah.
The length of time on the exposure, this can be argued till the cows come home with a lot of people don't like the cotton candy waterfalls and some people prefer this type. I tend to prefer the softer, like the other some of the other waterfalls we've seen, it's really super soft. This exposure time here was, I don't know, half second maybe,
So you're
second.
looking for you would like to see longer
I'd like
exposure,
to see a little
more
longer,
so.
yeah. On this type of moving water, you only need 2 seconds max and you got it.
Well,
Um,
the other thing it creates when you do that is you've got plenty of texture and contrast going on the rocks, and then if you take that water and give it that cotton candy look, then you've got a whole new
that's the thing, yeah.
feeling to that scene. You're
And
creating
two
a whole new.
seconds isn't going to do much to the pool of water down here, but it will smooth it just a little bit more as well. Not
Right.
much,
Right.
but it would do everything to the falling water.
Good comment. I like that. This is called the Sculptor's Veil.
I feel like the maker found an awesome place to photograph. It's just that maybe his time of day was not conducive to capturing the image here because we got so many different highlights on the rocks and the shadows. We got the sky coming up and we got some things in the sky. I can't tell what they look like. Something's been worked on in the sky above the rocks because there's something fuzzy and something in there. But with this, it has some great geographical uh, structures in the image. Now, at the very bottom, the things that bother me is that on the bottom right is the little branches, yeah, are coming in out of the scene and diluting the integrity of that lower part of the scene there. But we got the image here, but it needs to have some contrast on at the right time of day. But we got somebody. Is this like a light come across somebody's face and having spotlights on the shoulder, the nose, the ear? And this is kind of what it feels like to me as well.
Yeah, I'm seeing that too, especially right here, Dennis, is what you're saying. Some
Yes.
of these,
Yeah.
some of those marks too. Yeah. I also feel like a crop would actually work on this as well. So crop that whole bottom section off.
Oh no, I love that big rock at the
Do you?
bottom. Yeah, I
So you
love
Let
want to, Kevin, you're
me see
saying to
it.
do that. You're
Yeah, let me
saying to
see
do
it.
this.
I do want to see it. Yep.
All right. Can do that.
well, you could do a twofer on this. Crop one with the rock in the bottom of the rocks and then crop that up. So you got a twofer again.
I actually quite like this.
Would you go that far in on the left, Kevin, or?
Yeah, I quite like this.
Especially cropping off those highlights. And you
Yeah.
could tone those highlights down, but the way it
What
was is there's a lot of issues with
what
Yeah,
I'm
I think.
liking
that schema.
what I'm liking here is I kind of want to draw the eye almost to this right there, that cave.
Yeah, yeah. I like that texture and those little whatever those are called. Those little rock formations there,
Yeah.
they're carved by water. Let's see if I can
And then
warm it.
what I would encourage the maker to do, even on this very image, is if you can tone down this highlight a little bit without it getting muddy, great. The whole image needs a little bit more contrast, but you can go in and burn in these shadows in here and really deepen just these caverns and just get in there and just start burning some of these like deeper areas and just getting those a lot darker.
Yeah, if this is not a difficult place to get to, number one, plan to go back. Number two, plan to take Dennis and I and Kevin with you. Because this is just, I mean, the wonderful feeling. But it's just what happens is that we get these, let me go back to my pen tool here. These harsh shadows are just asking for attention. And I know that we've already got wonderful shapes in the rock, but these tend to take over, especially these transition lines are very harsh.
Mm.
If you could soften those transition lines, which is another that I've done sometimes when I get a harsh shadow, it's hard to do without losing detail. But just keep that in mind that those are what are pulling the eye away from the story that you're trying to tell. If I go back to the original submitted image, it's a great place. I'd love to stand. There's probably a lot of great stuff, but imagine not having these highlights on these rocks of that brilliance, but still having light, still having highlight and shadow. So you create the roundness and the depth. Um, that's very cool. Another just playing with
And
cropping.
you can get the roundness and depth with burning and dodging.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you,
And
you
just
create it in post.
I just saw this. Let me play real quick here. Well, Cliff turns off the music. What about that's
It's
kind of
like
right in the
teeth.
middle.
Yeah, I was gonna say it looks like teeth.
Yeah, that's like a
Nature's
dinosaur.
dental.
It's
Nature's
a
dental work.
it's a
Yeah,
close up of some monster.
Jurassic Park T-Rex.
You never know. All right.
A threefer.
We should have an award for how many
Yeah.
images we can get out of. We only got four more to go, so how many images we can get out of one image. Vanishing.
Burr. I just think, I do a lot of winter photography, but no, there's still a burr. This maker has done an interesting job. They could have cropped a lot of places, but they got at the beginning of a fence, and they've left these weeds in intentionally. I'm not sure about these hot spots right here that could have been taken out, but they've taken. I wish there would be a little bit more space over here, but they've taken this diagonal, creating a tension. Oh, I like those leaves. I like those branches there. If we cut them off, we're gonna dissect into those weeds right there. And I think that's important. Maybe even a little bit more down like that.
How
But I
about if we
think
just come up like this? This leaves your weeds
I
in
want I
there.
want to see I want to see the bottom. I don't want them dissected because I want them maybe at the bottom of it. But that's just my opinion. And do we need to have all this over here? Maybe a more slimline, maybe crop it in a little bit more and bring the tension up right here. Now bring the top down right to the fence. Now to me that creates a little bit more dimension and strength in that image.
Before and after. It does bring more attention to the fence line.
It
Attention
it,
and tension.
it actually brings attention and tension as
Right,
well. It's
right.
I think that's a stronger crop, Dennis, for sure.
Yeah, sometimes we always talk about leaving space for the subject in the frame, but sometimes when you bring it to the edge, to the corner, whatever, you create that tension that helps tell your story. This works here for that
Yep,
very well.
I agree.
Rick, thoughts?
Yeah, as I
Would you
like.
put the mom right here and the dad right next to
Yeah, have the kids, have the kids with their pulling the little uh sleigh or the little what the heck am I trying to say?
their sled, you mean, or something?
Sled. Thank
Yeah.
you. No, this would make a great image for for commercial use. Because look at all this negative space for
Mm.
copy,
Yeah.
whether, whether it's a calendar, Christmas card, whatever. But great image for that kind of purpose.
And I'd like to add too, kudos to the maker because this is a tough scene when you get this very low light, just a little bit of direction coming from low to the right. But leaving this background, so you look back here, there's just a little bit of texture, a little bit of feeling of snowdrifts behind the fence. And look at all the great texture and the shadows that you've got in the foreground here and not losing it, not having it be just
Yeah.
flat gray, nothing. Those, like we talked about, those little bit of weeds that are dressed in snow, they have their little gowns on. That's texture in the posts.
Can you
Um,
increase contrast a bit?
sure, if you'd like that. Like we're about in here.
Just
Increasing that
wanted to see.
contrast now brings the shadows of the post out and even increase more dimension.
That's what I'm
The
thinking.
shadow comes out from the post to the right and creates more dimension, and I think it makes it stronger. It makes the
I
snow
think
stand
so.
up more.
Yeah.
I brought the brightness back down just a little bit from that so that we
Uh,
still keep our same low key feeling from here. But yeah, it does bring the posts out just a little bit more.
yeah, and then you could even go in and like burn these in a little bit more if you wanted, if the maker wanted to,
Oh,
some of
those
these
shadow.
poles. Yeah, you
Yeah,
could just burn
gotcha.
them in manually, but I think the poles look better. that increased contrast. Cool image. Dig it.
Blades. Dennis, go ahead.
Saw blades. Oh, cool shot. Somebody have the visualization. I just lost everything. There. I mean, my screen went black. Okay, great. We're back. Okay, the visualization of this and to find the rust and the patina on these saw blades. I love the visualization. My question is if they would have, instead of going horizontally, if they would have tipped their camera angle and created it dimensionally from the lower corner up to the upper corner, if they have this and they could do some cropping. But we got to adjust it by what they got here.
Yeah.
But because the way it's designed now, it's a little more passive on the composition, and a little bit more diagonal, a little bit more aggressive. And then the stroke line, I feel like, is a little overbearing. It's a little strong. The stroke line. I like the tonalities of the matte thing, but everything's just a little
How
straight.
about this?
Oh, see, I actually like that better. I actually like that better.
It is a little stronger, yeah. Kevin, what do you think?
Rotate that 180 the other way.
Sorry, I didn't go too far. So you want the blades on the left. Let me just do this.
No, not flip canvas.
No.
Just the rotation. I'm loving the texture in this, and I love that one saw blade is so white compared to the other two. Yeah, it was actually better the other way. Vertical the other way.
How about if
Um,
would you flip this so this area be on top? Would that be of any?
No, it's
maybe.
just yeah. Well,
I don't know.
I think even with a strong base point at the bottom, I think that creates a. I bet the maker's sitting there going, "Oh my gosh."
Stop it, will you
Yeah,
stop it? I don't know
yeah,
what to
you're
do
killing my image.
here.
I mean, I think the way it was presented is even strong here. But I think what you were saying, Dennis, is a different perspective a little bit, so you could have some depth of field. Is that what what you were
Yeah.
saying?
Well, I
Yeah.
guess it gives more perspective.
Yeah.
And I guess the other part is I would like to because the way I asked to do vertically, it becomes maybe not what it is. It's more of just a design
Just
as
an
opposed to
abstract almost.
correct. That's where I look for the
Gotcha.
abstract instead of just that saw blades. Then it
Yeah.
becomes it's not the way we'd see saw blades. So now it becomes an abstract.
Yeah,
I mean, when you first put it vertical, it looks almost like maple leaves a bit at first. I'm like,
it did a
wait a
little
second.
bit, didn't it?
Yeah.
I'm looking, I think it's kind of like a matte and a background piece, so it's not a
Mm.
stroke, so there's a little bit of a drop shadow here,
Yeah,
is what
I
you're
don't mind
saying.
that presentation. Didn't really pay much attention to it, so that's good.
Yeah, yeah. All right.
It's cool.
This one is called Scenic Santa Fe. Well, I like this one a lot. Composition is strong. I mean, I like the shadow here that leads us into the scene. This curve takes us all the way through this wall. The tonal range is just spectacular all through from the shadows to the highlights. It gives us plenty of depth, plenty of nice highlights on the top of the wall, the top of the posts right here. This highlight along this wall is cool. A little bit of window. Even brings us into this little bit of water chute with the shadow. Just, I think, kind of gives us a landing point. There's a lot of lines and curves, but and then we jump up to the bird and then come back to the curves. Kevin, what do you think?
Yeah, killer capture with that bird in there. That's so cool. I feel like it feels a little muddy in here again. I gotta say it, but it
A little
feels like
muddy.
it needs to be. I need to see a little bit more, a little bit brighter tonality in that wall or something. Just the contrast.
A little more of a punch like
Yeah,
this.
something. It just feels muddy. And and maybe the maker has this as well. This is one of those days where the sky is just, this is not an attractive sky at all.
It's
To
not,
me,
is it? Yeah.
just the mixed clouds. You have the high thin clouds, and then you have the lower level clouds. It's just not. It's a sky that's not working in your favor.
And
But
think of the Ansel Adams version, not to
yeah,
make that comparison, but there was a really dark gray, almost black
but
sky.
look at this. Also, just that. Maybe the maker has that, but What a cool shot just that is right
Just
there.
the drainage.
Just that with the shadow. So
Well, you know,
cool.
I really like this image and everything you guys talk about. But one of the things that really draw me out is the bird, because I'm looking at the bird, he's banking, and I look at the wall and everything, the wall, and it's got the light on
It's
the
cool.
wall, but the bird doesn't have the same kind of light intensity of the light.
Mm.
And so it feels like maybe that was an addition on there. Maybe I'm wrong, but the intensity on the light on the bird seems so different than all the intensity of the rest of the scene.
Yeah.
And then I'm actually seeing, it looks like some sensor spots and up in a couple of the areas in the clouds that they need to adjust. But I like the
I see
framing,
something there.
and there was a right there. There's something right there. A sensor spot looks like maybe right there.
Yeah.
But the bird. But I really like which is the framing device. Do we need that much? I think they could have cut that in half down over here and have it.
What's that? The bottom or the left or?
Well, I might.
Oh, if I come in like
Yeah,
this,
that's what I'm talking about right there. Yeah.
you can even come down the sky a little bit and
I put my thumb over the bird and took the bird out, and I could live with this shot without the bird. Just put your thumb over top of the bird and take it out, and it's really strong even without the bird in it.
all right,
What
we'll
do you
play.
guys think about this element area here? Are you seeing my
No.
Nope.
Uh-huh. Don't know what happened there. What color are you using, Rick? Aren't you
Are you
using?
talking about this area, Rick, right here?
I think
Did
he
Rick
froze.
disappear?
Oh, the
He froze
who
again.
put the pink marquee
No,
up?
I did.
I see. I saw that earlier, and I like that along with the shoot, and I like that as well. So this is like a fifer
This
on
is a
this one.
fifer.
All
It's the
right.
winner of the furs tonight.
Well, you know what else I was seeing too? Look at the, whoops, what the heck is the gradient? How did I get to the gradient tool? Hold on. Crop tool, Jeffrey. I was looking at this too. We think we lost Rick altogether there. He just left.
Yeah, that's pretty killer.
Now we're at a sixer.
That's no, I didn't do that. I went here.
That there's so many captures to be made in a
Then
section in an area like
you were
this.
like right like this,
I was
Kevin.
there, yeah, that's where I was.
Yeah, look at that. The maker's going, stop it, please stop it.
uh,
And then what was the other one here we were talking about?
The
Oh yeah,
window and
the window. Yeah, it all works. All right, maker, sorry about that.
I'm back.
I'm feeling oh yeah, you did leave. Did you have
Yeah,
to
I had a question
go ahead?
about with you guys. What do you feel about this area right here in the background? Should or could that be eliminated? Are you seeing my
No,
cursor?
No, we're
I'm not
not.
there. There it is. It showed
Oh
up.
yeah, okay.
That triangle shape.
Yeah,
I think if it wasn't there, it would probably be a little stronger. But you
Agreed.
know what? The maker, you could probably just select that area and make it a lot darker, bring it down into the tone like the shadow of the wall here, or even darker into that. I think
Darker, yeah, even.
instead of removing it, just take it dark. But I would, for a fine art piece, and again, not competition, I would take that sky out and drop in that deeper Ansel Adams, not just black, but maybe a gradient from a real deep black down to a gradient
Mm,
across the back of the bed. That would be, and the more I look at it, I think I might cut this area in half right here.
yeah.
Just cut this in half.
Good job.
Maybe even, yeah. Yeah, well done. Thank you for sticking up with us, gang. Appreciate that. A lot of you have stayed. So this is called Windows and Stories. Dennis, go ahead.
I think as artists, we are cursed because everywhere we walk, we see things like this and we see lights and shadows, and which isn't bad. So as I look at this image, I like the image, but the thing that catches my eye is that extra light on the camera, right? That dark where the maybe part of the wall is, and it goes dark and then goes light right there. Yeah, that feels like there's an extra space there. It didn't need to be there, and maybe
This
that.
area along here?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. I feel like it, and I would like to see more of the door, but we don't have that. It's very contrasty, and
It
this is
is.
as opposed to some of the others we've seen. It's because it's more contrasty than anything else we've seen today. And then the stroke line is a little strong. I think it needs to be diminished down in size to bring more attention to the windows and things going
Mhm.
on. But I really like the shadows of the ladders and the what are those rails and things. There's just a lot of things going on there.
A lot of the fire escape shadows on the building is cool. Kevin, what do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I agree with all that's been said with that, and I think Dennis is right. It's a very, very, very contrasty image. I would like to commend the maker on choosing a very skinny vertical crop, though. It's not something we see often, and I think that works on certain images such as this. It would be cool to see the bottom of this door, as Dennis was saying. I would agree with that, or that window. I think it's a door down there at the bottom.
Where the white is
Yeah,
down there? Yeah.
yep. Um, but I'm really happy to see this skinny vertical crop. We just don't see them often. I think we have skinny vertical walls that need prints too, you know?
Yeah, you get hallways and offices, the ends of, yeah.
Yeah,
So you're saying you're talking about cutting off that right side there, that
yeah,
right.
yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, compositionally, that's really cool.
I love the shadows of the fire escape on the wall.
It's very cool.
Well, windows and stores. This could
And
have been
that
windows.
ladder, oh my God, look at the ladder.
Yeah, it's almost like a ghost floating there.
Yeah, this could be in Charleston, actually. It's
Hey,
not, but
Jeffy,
Yes, sir.
how about, I don't know if you're seeing my cursor.
no.
No, hang on a second. Let me go
Use
back
your
to.
paintbrush. There you go.
Yeah, there you go. So you want to crop it.
Crop it there and then fill in that dome of
So get
the,
rid of it altogether, you're saying.
no,
Oh
yeah,
yeah, and then you would just
get rid of the dome of the door
The
so that
white.
there's a little space underneath that stairway. And,
Say that again. I'm not following you there.
okay, the crop that you just did is fine, but fill in or eliminate
The
the
white.
dome so
Okay,
it's congruent with everything else. That way we eliminate the highlight or the brightness of the door that's
gotcha.
drawing attention since we don't see the whole door anyway.
That's good stuff. Yeah. So you leave that arch of the bricks there because you can see there's an arch of bricks over the door, but just make this darker so it fills into the same
Right, right,
feeling
right.
as the other arch.
Yes, yes.
Or just copy and paste one of those window arches down into
You
that
know,
spot, and then it
yeah,
look
just
like
gonna
it's
say.
a.
Yeah. Because the brightness of that door and the dome was commanding a lot of attention. But this is a powerful image.
if that whole door was there, Rick, I think it would be fine.
Yes, I
Because it would
agree.
move it up into frame and it would put it into a PowerPoint. But
I
yeah,
agree.
yep. Because it's not.
So get rid of
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Good, yeah, good call.
Hmm.
Would you, hang on, all right, come on, I can do it, Jeff. Hold on. This crop on the right, we took out that highlight on the wall. When I cropped it into this, now I see a big black. Would you get rid of that altogether?
Actually, the black kind of mirrors the shadow on their side, and maybe
Okay,
they could take that left side and darken that down, not eliminate it, darken
right,
down to kind of
Yeah,
match and frame that.
yeah.
gotcha.
I see that too. It's almost
This
like the building ends there, and it's just like I think it looks cool.
How about
this
taking
could,
this left side and duplicating it and bringing it over here
there you go.
so
Let's
that
put
you
a
have
car in there. Can we
so
put a
that you
car in
have
there?
so that you have the
I'm
texture.
thinking we put a giraffe's head coming out of this window. Oh, sorry. We're going too far.
No, what I'm saying
Sorry.
is so that,
So
can you
just
hear me okay? Can you
duplicating
hear
this
me?
texture over here, Rick?
Can you hear me okay, guys?
Yeah.
I was just, my point is to having some texture on
Okay.
this
Mm,
So by duplicating this
so that it's
area here, we're gonna,
balanced. So that it's balanced.
gotcha. Good call. All right, Maker. Hope you're taking notes. Good stuff, everybody. That's the last image of the evening. We did a pretty good long show, so thank you for paying attention, staying with us. Um, Questions from the peanut gallery. Nobody's been putting any questions in the box tonight. Is everybody still there? Or did you turn it off and go watch a movie instead?
Uh,
we did
What
so
are we
much of that
missing?
last image, I was halfway expecting when you reverted it back to the original that mountains were going to show up all of a sudden.
Hey,
Yeah.
we're going on long, which is fine, but I want to give Kevin a chance. Kevin, tell us about your project. He's worked on something that's extremely close to his heart, and I want you guys to know about it if you don't mind.
I appreciate that, Jeff, actually.
Oh, really?
So I have a new website, kevin-holiday.com.
Go
It
see
has
it.
nothing to do with photography, but it does. So over the course of the years, I've gone through alcohol addiction and sobriety 13 years ago, sober, now and all those things. Just life travels have been taking me on a path that has opened up a new venture for me, which is essentially teaching self-help kind of stuff. And so I've written a full book, manuscript. It's about 40,000 words. And what's cool about it is all of a sudden I realized talking with Jeff and other people that all of the photography language that we use on a day-to-day basis relates directly to life. And so I've written a book that has over 27 photography analogies in it as they relate to life.
Yeah,
And it's
very
quite
cool.
cool. So haven't found a publisher yet, working on that, but writing blog articles and podcast to be starting soon. And so all these things. So hop on over to my website, kevin-holiday.com, and check out what I got going on.
Yeah, get
Totally
on his
different from photography.
get on his mailing list so you can be up to date when the book
Yeah.
comes out, so we can be supportive and
Yeah. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun venture, I think. Looking forward to helping people out in another way. Yeah.
so very cool. Any other questions? We're getting to it's a long evening. I know we don't care, but Kevin's on the East Coast and it's like
Yeah. It's about time for me to wake up already.
quarter to 2 in the morning there. But you guys that are still online with us, I can't thank you enough for being with us for our fourth season here now, and just thank you for that. And feel free to reach out. We've got some great ideas we're working on for the future. Stay tuned for all kinds of cool things like that. We've got Olin on board as part of our planning crew, along with Kevin, and we've got some new cool things we're going to be sharing with all of you in the future to make your experience way beyond just this show. So be prepared we're going to blow your socks off.
Good job,
Yep.
guys.
Thank you.
Yep.
Dennis, thank you again for being part of our little family here. We really appreciate you and
Heck yeah.
value what you have to say, or we wouldn't keep asking. Sorry it was so long in between, but
It's all good. It's all good. I just appreciate being asked.
and Cliff, thank you
Yep.
again, man, for being the silent majority, as we say, and making this thing run smoothly. Thank you, sir.
Thank you all so
Thank you,
very
everybody.
much for uh, supporting our show, which is so grateful. Cliffy, Kevin, man, you guys just are so much of a big part of what goes on. Without you guys, well, we couldn't do it. But my gratitude to all of you. Denny, thanks so much, and my love to you and Sherry. Take care, y'all. Good night.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching the Image Critique Show with Jeff Johnson and Rick Avalos. Learn more by checking them out at theimagecritiqueshow.com.